Hello, YouTube. Back with another week of answering Overwatch University questions, and it's also my birthday. Done this for too long. Let's go. Am I crazy, or is Tracer not easy at all? I've seen posts and comments on the main sub, r/Overwatch, about how Tracer is broken and how she's not that hard to pick up and do well with. Pause. I think Tracer is broken at the high ends, but she's very hard to pick up and hard to do well with. Anyways, I like to think these people have actually never played her or have tried her a few times in quick play lobbies full of bronze players and got carried. Tracer is still a very punishable hero, and even a tiny mistake can lead to your death. I know the 25 HP health increase and new DPS passive introduced in Season 9 kind of bumped her up to an S tier. She's always kind of been S tier. But like, just because she's a really good hero to pick doesn't mean your average Tor player can just try her out one day and dominate a lobby. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating. I don't know. What do you guys think? You're not crazy. That is exactly the assessment of Tracer. Tracer is one of those high skill ceiling heroes. The ceiling is so uncapped at the top that like she's like a must have for any sort of professional team. You need a Tracer player because she's extremely flexible, can work in so many different compositions, and just does things that no other hero can do. Safely pressure on any angle on any map. I wouldn't say any angle, but like more options than any other hero because she can get there with the blinks and she can do it so safely. But you're right, she could be very easily punished because she has the low HP pool, and so your average noob Tor player can walk around without managing the blinks correctly and just die to like 2 shots, right? So you're not crazy. Tracer is very hard, but worth mastering if you're any sort of DPS player. What are some good targets to nano when we have no ultimates? During the first fight, I like to save my nano for an ultimate combo, but if I die first, people have often popped their ults by the time I come back. Are there any particularly good targets to nano who don't have their ults when they're engaging? I often make the mistake of holding my nano for too long if the first fight doesn't go well. That's a great question. I do have a lot of hours on Ana. I actually have like 2 Ana resources, a little outdated, but I have one where I have a tier list of heroes I would nano if they didn't have their ultimate, and heroes I would nano if they do have their ultimate. And I have a YouTube short called 5 ways to do your nano boost. All 3 of those are searchable on YouTube and should have enough viewership and comments in it that it should pop up if you search up KarQ nano boost tips or something like that. The takeaway point is a good target to nano when you don't have an ultimate combo is almost any tank, especially for tempo, because a lot of times a nano boost is kind of like a hey, like stop standing there, go in, like a validation nano, a go in nano button. I would say the best 2 tanks are probably like a Winston or a high energy Zarya, but most of them are pretty acceptable. Like if Sigma's like really far away, Sigma's generally a pretty safe hero. So the damage boost on the orbs, like the primary fire is nice, but it still requires like 2 or 3 rotations of shots to confirm a kill. And Reinhardt's conditional of being close enough to like, you know, have the gap closed so you can actually swing or do something meaningful. And in terms of comboing ultimate, I would actually say in first fights, you should try to look for an earlier nano, because more often than not, you will build your nano faster than anybody else on your team, and you just dump it on a tank so they can build their ultimate a little quicker. Then you cycle tempo. Because remember, why do we use nano boost? To hopefully win a fight. If the fight is going to be won with you using a nano early and not waiting for a perfect time or perfect combo, that's a good nano. You can also use your nano to save somebody if they get stuck by a pulse bomb or whatever. Saving a life is equivalent of, you know, nanoing somebody so they can take a life. So if I can do that to save somebody, I'll do that as well. Those are higher priority than looking for perfect combos, because the combo is always conditional on them hopefully doing something. But yeah. What do you do when your DPS can't counter flyers? I just had a game where they came out on Pharmacy, Echo, Hog, and my DPS came out on Venture and Reaper. Needless to say, their DPS didn't die once. And I tried swapping from Kiri, we had Hog, over to BAP, but I couldn't challenge them out of the air alone. Then to Ana to try from far away, and then Zen, and by this time they swapped to Sojourn and Widow to try and help my DPS secure a kill to no avail. Their DPS didn't die once the game, once the entire game. Our DPS said he's not a hit scan guy, and the other one just went Widow but didn't actually land any picks. Is it a guaranteed loss? Then they somehow had the audacity to blame our tank. Assuming you're playing support, right? So you're playing BAP, Ana, those are acceptable. Illari is also probably the one you didn't try. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily your DPS's job by themselves to counter the flyers. It's kind of a team effort to counter flying heroes. If you're a good DPS player and you can mark them, or aka pressure them, that's good. Generally don't like Widow players swapping, DPS players swapping a Widow to go for kills on flyers, because A, it's actually a lot harder than you think to hit a headshot on flying Mercy's, Echoes, Pharah's, because their x-axis or their y-axis, excuse me, is always hovering up and down, and they're bobbing. They're not as natural as like flat ground targets. So you can go for pretty easy body shots as Widow, but landing the dinks is actually a lot harder than it looks. So I often prefer DPS heroes to play like Soldier or Cassidy to pressure them. But of course, a flying hero will be pocketed in a lot of times, right? Pharah, Mercy, and Echo. If they're being pocketed in the sky, then you know they have 2 or 3 people in the sky. So your job is, you can kind of encourage your DPS to ignore them and just, you know, burn the tank because he's going to be by themselves in the open. Or if they're playing flankers, to go for this other support. Those are other options. And as you as a support, I mean, everyone's going to play the blame game, but it is a team effort. Your single Cassie or single Ashe isn't going to be able to 1v3 Echo, Pharah, and Mercy in the sky. So it's kind of a collective team effort. You either mirror and match those 3 people with 2 of your hit scans and maybe your other support as a hit scan, or you take a different approach, completely different approach, and kill their front line. And then wherever possible, you shoot the flying heroes to pressure them, because it's always about pressure, 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 and that pressure will force them to switch positions and maybe not take as much aerial space in front of you because they're getting shot. And they're like, oh my god, I can't stand here anymore because I'm getting shot at and I'm getting low and I gotta wait for my heals. Is there any way to avoid being hacked by a Sombra? Pretty much the title. I'm new to this game, never played original Overwatch. I'm literally level 30 with no prestige. So right now I main Moira and I'm working on being comfortable playing Lucio. Whenever I play Moira and there's a Sombra on the other team, I get consistently smacked. I tend to rely on Fate to get out of sticky situations, but when Sombra hacks me, I can't do anything but try to run. Is there any way to avoid the hack? Is there an audio visual cue that goes off when she's near? Are there any tricks for avoiding her, or am I doomed just to be effed by her? Lol. And please, also I mentioned I'm very new to this game, new to the FPS shooter, so if you could explain using the most simple gaming vocab, that'd be appreciated. All right, new player, I got you. So you are playing Moira. You have 3 options. 1, there is a visual cue and a sound. When she unstealths and goes for the hack, you'll hear a dee 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 dee. And sometimes if she like unstealths without opening with hack, because she can start the hack in stealth, but sometimes she might unstealth first and you can hear her say a line in Spanish like "¿Qué onda?", which I think means I'm here. I stopped doing my Duolingo, I'm sorry. All I know is "tu bebes agua." And then there's a sound cue, the dee 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 sound. You have to be very careful listening to that, but it is a little tough because there could be a lot of other noise and senses going on, especially because you're a new player. It can be a little overwhelming. The third thing is also, I think your screen changes a little bit. You can actually see it turn a little purple on the side, but you have like a 0.6 second moment, 0.6 seconds before you're actually going to get hacked. So if you can't notice the purple stuff, then you're probably gonna get hacked. But if you can notice any of the sound cues, the visual cue, sorry, the sound with the Kionda, and the second sound with the dee 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 dee, or the third sound or third visual cue with like the purple stuff, if you can notice that, your best option is to just fade. Fade will completely break line of sight of the hack, and that'll get canceled. Number 2 is that you can actually play close to walls. If she's on a certain angle where she starts to hack, if you break line of sight at any point, so like, you know, you put a wall between you and the Sombra, the hack will break. So she will not be able to hack you. So that requires like a preemptive positioning, like where you're kind of expecting the Sombra. So you're kind of just gonna hover around the wall, and maybe if she hacks and if she hacks you from the side and there's a wall behind you, cut it off. If the Sombra's in front of you, you use your biotic grasp, your secondary fire. I don't know what button that is on console, but it's right click on PC. It's probably like left click. It's not the heal spray, it's the damage one. So you just hold that button as Moira. You don't consume any ammo when you hold the damage, like little like biotic grasp, right? If she's in front of you, if you can swing your camera quick enough to just tickle her with just a sliver of damage on the thing, it'll interrupt the hack. And those are the many ways to avoid it. And in worst case, if you get hacked by Sombra, you probably won't die, because even if you're hacked, you can challenge back and start sucking her off with the thingy, and that'll self-heal you long enough that you won't die, and the hack will wear off after a second, and then you can just throw a heal orb and keep yourself healthy. Like, Moira is one of the better options, if not one of the best, safest options against Sombra. So hopefully I answered that in a way that is helpful for a new player like you. Next, accepting that I'm just bad at the game, what should I do? I played Overwatch beta, 1,000 hours in Overwatch 1, 500 hours in Overwatch 2. Highest rank I achieved is silver, one time back in Overwatch 1. Other than that, I've never been out of bronze. It feels so embarrassing to have so much time in the game and apparently be this bad at it. Honestly, don't feel too bad. IQ solo because all my friends quit the game long ago. I don't blame them. I don't blame teammates because it's bronze, so I have no expectations. I would think just based off the amount of time I have in the game, I should be good enough to carry myself at a bronze, but nope, this season I've not moved my rank at all. I got placed bronze 3, haven't moved in it after 100 games, which tells me it's just my skill level. I know I shouldn't care about an arbitrary rank, but after 2,000 hours in Overwatch, seeing that my skill is still apparently low is absolutely demoralizing. I am thinking about just either not playing competitive anymore, or just moving on from the game for good. Not that I need to be a high rank to have fun, but never seeing any improvement just sucks. And in my experience, quick play tends to almost always be stomps and doesn't seem like enough to keep me interested. Guess I'm just looking for advice on what I should do to get past this feeling, or if it's better if I just walk away from it. Number 1 is you don't feel bad. Try not to feel bad about it. And people play games for 2 reasons, right? You try to play to have fun. It feels like you're not having fun anymore and you want to improve. If that is your goal, you have to look a little bit beyond just mindlessly playing the game without, thinking outside the box and looking for resources to get help. I mean, you're doing it now on OverwatchUniversity, so that's a good start. For example, my wife is bronze and she totally accepts it. She's having a great time playing the game. She calls herself the bronze queen and she totally owns it. And that's like one way to approach it. But for you and she actually has like 500 hours in the game too. But like for you, close to 2,000 hours, if you want to get better, you have to put in the work to get better. And that means looking for not small little tips and tricks on YouTube, because those tips and tricks are pretty arbitrary, like pretty much like single target matchups. Like, I'm going to be honest, my one tip for every hero series on YouTube isn't great for overall rank up. It's just like nice to know tips in like these specific scenarios, but it's such a team game and there's so many different elements you have to worry about. So you're going to have to really go for the improvement and have people like watch your VOD and point things out. One thing I'll say is that a lot of people might recommend stuff like, yeah, rewatch your replays. But the problem with watching your replays is you don't know what to watch out for. You don't know what you don't know. So how do you know if you're making a mistake here? Unless it's like, clearly I died, so I must have made a mistake. But like having another pair of eyes that knows how to like coach and explain very well will be very good for you, very helpful for you. Number 2, hopefully that coach will also call out missed opportunities, because that's not as obvious for a lot of players. It's easy to be like, I died, that's a mistake. But it's harder to be like, well, in this specific scenario, at this choke point, you had like 4 options, 4 different opportunities to do 4 different things. It's like chess. If I move the pawn here and they do this, like there's like 4 acceptable moves, which you could have moved the knight here, the bishop here or whatever, or the rook here, you could have castled. Like there's so many 4 different things you could have done, but you like picked a not as great option. So finding those missed opportunities with the coach, watching a replay, will be a lot better. I know you're soloing right now. It doesn't seem like you're having a good time, but you'd be surprised at how many like-minded people like you who are in silver and bronze would also like to queue with you and play with you and get better together. It's important for you right now to find people who have the same mindset, people who are bad at the game, but are like actually like trying to improve. There's a difference between people who are just bad, quote unquote, but are just playing casually for fun. I mean, I think I like glanced down at the bottom of this Reddit thread and there's a bunch of people saying, hey, sent you a chat. I'd be happy to review your games together, get you a playlist. I'll happy to queue with you. So the fact that you reached out here, great start, my friend. What would you nerf for your main? I always see people who want to buff their favorite character, but I want to see a nerf, please be honest. Okay. I mean, I've been in KarQ jail for the last like 3 seasons with a bit of Baptiste, of course. If I had to nerf KarQ, arguably, I would actually say it's not Suzu. As much as other people hate Suzu, it is a pretty easy and cheesy ability, but without Suzu, I think some certain heroes are going to run way too rampant in the game if it's like way too safe to always get an easy Junker Queen ultimate. I mean, there's other things that counter it. Or like Tracer is going to be even more of a server admin because Pulse can't be cheesed. And then like the threat of a backline, like actually pressuring a Tracer is harder. One of the reasons why KarQ is played so much is because like KarQ is one of the better heroes is safer to at least deal with the Tracer. Anyways, not the Suzu. I would actually nerf Swift Step. I think Swift Step is a 7-second free get out of jail free card for yourself, which is more of a guarantee and has more uses than the Suzu every 30 seconds for your teammate. The fact that I can teleport 25 meters away or whatever the distance is for free through walls is kind of insane to me. For example, if I die on Watchpoint Gibraltar attacking first, I can respawn and just teleport to a teammate on that like server room, that mega health pack near the first point checkpoint. By map design, Gibraltar's an old map, but like The fact that I can respawn and re-enter the fight just like that makes it crazy for stalling and coming back to the fight quickly. And then number 2, the fact that I can have this teleport. A lot of low rank players don't use it like this, which is why KarQ has a bad win rate at low ranks, but is very strong at high ranks, is that offensive off-angle pressure. I can perch myself up aggressively and just keep poking with kunais. And if I do get pressured, I'm literally gone instantly across 20 meters. And if I do it right, I'm safe and I always get free pressure, which is just an untangible or unmatchable variable that no other support can really do besides maybe like Lucio if you go really aggressive and you're just poking with your green Oreos and you speed out back. But someone like Moira is limited by range, so she can't really like fade as far as KarQ and has to be close to suck them off. So like KarQ is like this only hero that can safely do something like this. Space control isn't just the job of the tank. Most tanks are designed to control space by either holding the front line or pressuring the enemy backline, as these are both ways to limit the pressure the enemy tank can exert on your team. Frontliners make it more difficult for the enemy tank to push, and dive tanks limit the resources the enemy tank gets, which limits their survivability and uptime. Expecting tanks to peel, control the front line, and control flanks all at once is a complete misunderstanding of the tank's job and how space is controlled in Overwatch 2. Space is affected by everyone on the team, their positioning and how much pressure they're exerting on the enemy and where that pressure is being directed. Most of the DPS roster is designed to either pressure the enemy frontline or backline in the same way tanks are. Supports also have a lot of options for pressuring the enemy with damage and for countering flankers and divers. Sometimes the tank is... Okay, so far everything I'm reading is actually like good. Oh, this is not really a question. This is question or discussion, but it was one of the top questions, but I guess this is more of a discussion piece. This is a long tutorial. Okay, I'm gonna read your TLDR. Space control is a team effort in Overwatch 2. If you don't have the proper space to work with, it is not necessarily because of your tank. DPS and even supports winning flanks is much more valuable than having a tank give up on the backbone of the enemy team to do so. Just because your tank isn't around while you're being pressured doesn't mean they're doing something incorrect. Sometimes the enemy puts all their eggs in the ruin the tank's day basket, and they need you to either match fire with fire or cut off the resources the backline is providing. Yeah, I actually agree with this. This is not really a question. I ended up reading. You're right. Space control. I mean, the only thing I'll add is, I guess, just to elaborate a little bit, each like tank has a different goal of controlling space, like you said. So like if you have like an Orisa, you're just holding front line. If you have a Winston, you're cutting resources off and ignoring the tank to apply pressure elsewhere. And that's creating space there and causing like mispositioning. It's up to you as a team, both DPS and support, to complement how your tank and your archetype and playstyle is going. Are we diving? Are we brawling? Are we poking? It's not just the tank. Everybody has a job to do. And it depends on what the enemy team is running and what your team is running. So I read the TLDR and I read it a little bit at the beginning, and I think it actually encompassed a pretty good portion of it. So I'll move on from that. Orisa ult versus Orisa ult. What is the strategy? You have the ult. You know the enemy Orisa has it. Do you A, want to hit Q, your ultimate, before the enemy Orisa does? Or B, say you've now both hit Q and are charging. What's the strategy? Do you want to unleash it first, or is it putting you at a disadvantage? I just reached plat 4 as a tank, happy with my progress, but I'm feeling I'm not fully understanding how to make Terra Surge work. The strategy is to ult second as Orisa. Why? When you press your ultimate as Orisa, you get a free fortify. You get over health, you get green health, and you have damage reduction from the fortify. So if their Orisa pops her ult first and is charging to 500%, you can walk up and start charging yours right after in her circle, because if you're in her circle, they're also in your circle, because theirs is going to let go first because they started it first. And despite it being at max charge, because you're fortified, you will tank it. You have armor and you have damage reduction. And the fact that they popped it first means their fortify ended. And then as soon as theirs pops, you pop yours second because they won't have the damage reduction from fortify or the overhealth anymore. And then boom, you took less damage and they took more damage. No more healbot Lifeweaver. I think that Lifeweaver is looked at as a lower utility version of Mercy, and I don't think the buffs to his heal stats improve him. What do you all think about potentially playing into the plant aspect of his hero fantasy by adding a poison or anti-heal aspect to his damage? I'm thinking about maybe doing X amount of damage to a specific target can trigger either a complete anti-heal similar to Ana, but for less time, or maybe a slightly stronger version of DPS passive where healing is reduced. Let me know what y'all think. I think on paper, like from a gamer perspective, I think adding elements and stuff is really cool. Like the only element in this game that really has a noticeable effect effect as dynamite or burns from nano, or sorry, from Ash's dynamite or Mauga's gun. Because like if you burn someone with Ash's dynamite, Mauga also gets the crit bonus. Same with Torb. Torb is lava, his ultimate burning effect, so it amplifies Mauga's his gun because it's all fire. So adding a poison and starting to slowly add elements, May with ice and stuff, wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. But as it stands, I don't think that would actually solve it. I think if we added poison to Lifeweaver, I think almost every hero needs to have like some sort of element, kind of like Pokemon at that point. So if we're gonna add to Lifeweaver, everybody needs some sort of element, and then we have to do a complete different set of balance for that. I think it's less right now, less about adding the poison or anti-heal to his kit, and more about probably improving the interweaving between throwing the thorns and the healing, because it's so like anti-synergistic, where like if I have to sit there and hold charge or my heal, I cannot use my thorns, and the fact that I have to like flip and it has like a little delay in animation just feels clunky. It's always felt clunky to me. Yes, he is a heal bot Lifeweaver, but the fact that it's just so punishing to even swap at any point and it's hard to read just makes him like inherently like meh at the high ranks. Like he's acceptable in the low to mid ranks because like heal botting is like fine there, but the high ranks, like he doesn't really die. It's hard to like be the winning factor in your games at the high ranks and be that difference maker. So some sort of synergy between the two weapons is what I would do. How to effectively use Ramattra. Last question of the week. Pretty much what the title says. I love Ramattra. I want him to be the main tank. How do I effectively use him? Okay, I'm not gonna read the rest of it because you said it's basically a title. How do you effectively use Ramattra? Sit, wait, opportunist. That's it. Poke, poke, poke in your Omnic form, and then you wait for your opportunity. If there's a punishable person out of position, then you can chase. If not, you poke, 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 and if they come to you, you sit there and just punch them and stall for time and block. Going for the chase kills is good for either cleanup or if someone severely made a mistake. Otherwise, the basic Ramattra is to just survive. And that's why a lot of high rank pro, like that's why he's not really popular in rank, because it's kind of boring in a lot of senses, sitting there and waiting and surviving. But in a lot of pro play, a lot of teams love using Ramattra Brawl because he can stall for so long. Popping Nemesis form, getting so much armor, sitting there and blocking just buys time for your team to pop off. So yeah, you have to remember that, being like having presence and sitting there and blocking and stalling objective is incredibly powerful. And then wait. If you block and they're focusing you, they're spending resources on you, you're soaking it up, your team is hopefully punishing them back, and when you see the opportunity, then you start going aggro and going for punches. But he's an opportunist hero because you have so many forms to switch, and that is arguably not an easy hero to pick up until you get a really good feel for the ebb and flow of tank. So I think Ramattra's great, but definitely needs some practice. And that is it for the Reddit questions this week. Thank you very much. Peace out.